Mobile firing points appeared long before tanks, as early as the 19th century. A classic example of such a product was the German Fahrbahr Panzerlafette, or Schumann carriage, which immortalized the name of its creator, Major Maximilian Schumann. The idea of a mobile firing point, which was armed with a rapid-fire cannon and could be transported to its installation site on horse traction, proved extremely successful. They were also successfully used in World War I. Later there appeared simpler designs, which were usually built for the installation of machine guns. The main task mobile defensive structures were a reinforcement of the defense in a dangerous section of the front. In case of need, the defensive structure was quickly removed from the place of installation and transported to a new location. However, the mobile defensive structures that were used during World War II had a number of disadvantages. First, in the time since the Schumann carriage was introduced, the armament of infantry units had increased markedly. The anti-bullet armor that most mobile defenses had was vulnerable to anti-tank rifles, anti-tank grenades, and cannon fire. Another disadvantage was low mobility. Finally, such defenses were usually made for machine guns or anti-tank rifles, which greatly limited their firepower. At the same time, there was a demand for gun-mounted mobile defenses. Similar designs have been developed, tested, and even adopted on armament. But, in fact, it didn't get any further than the prototypes. The main reason for this was the gradual growth of requirements to the firepower of such structures. As a result, they simply became obsolete. Therefore, the emergence of projects of such mobile firing points was quite natural. Just such a project was proposed by engineer Alekseenko from Magnitogorsk Metallurgical Plant in the USSR, from where in July 1942 came this project. The idea of a walking pillbox looked crazy only at first glance. As mentioned above, there was a demand for such structures, especially for gun structures, and with anti-missile armor. In this sense, Alekseenko's design gave a head start to all similar proposals. Combat weight of the walking bunker was an impressive 45 tons. Such a great mass was connected with the impressive thickness of the armor. The stern part of the frontal armor was 200 mm thick, while the flanks were 120 mm thick. This meant that none of the available German towed artillery models could take such a thing in the forehead. At the same time, the frontal detail had bevels, meaning there were still rational angles. There was a 76 mm cannon mounted inside, and a DT machine gun was mounted on the right side. Two more DT machine guns were in ball mounts at the stern of the structure. Approximate ammunition was 70 to 100 shells to the gun and 5,000 ammo. Access to the bunker was through a hatch on the roof. It was supposed to be powered by a GAZ-11 engine. It would seem that the engine power for a 45-ton machine was ridiculous, but that's if you don't know the principle of movement. The fact is that Alekseenko decided to use the principle of a walking excavator. For a mobile firing point it was quite acceptable. It moved at a speed of 2 km per hour. And, given the peculiarities of its design, it could do it directly under enemy fire. In the firing position, the legs were above the ground and the pillbox stood on a round support. This ensured its circular rotation. As a matter of fact, it was the idea of a walking defensive structure that drew the specialists' attention to it. In theory, several such pillboxes could easily halt an attack, because there was nothing to penetrate them, and it was also a non-trivial task to jam them. And if such things also helped each other with fire, it would be a big problem to pass them. Of course, the disadvantage was the small ammunition, but don't think that the regular pillbox had much more. The main mistake was sending the project to main armored department. The development of mobile defense structures was more a matter for the main military engineering directorate of the Red Army. The idea was simply rejected by the main armored department. There, of course, they criticized the project, primarily for the engine. Although the main problem was not the engine at all, but how to get such a thing to its destination. The Red Army's fleet of tractors was limited, and a trailer was clearly needed. In addition, it was not a tank, but a pillbox. If the project had been submitted to the engineering department, the result might have been slightly different. Especially since the People's Commissar of Ferrous Metallurgy, Tvozhin, to whom the Magnitogorsk Metallurgical Plant was subordinate, was not against making such a contraption, provided the consent from above. And the thickness of the armor is not as difficult to implement as it may seem. As a result, the Walking Frog became just one of the curious projects that got lost in the archives of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation.